Get things started off. So welcome everyone to What Keeps You Up at Night, Entrepreneurship During Challenging Times. My name is Colin Weston. I am the community leader of Startup Vancouver. And Startup Vancouver is one of over 40 community chapters of Startup Canada across the country. And as you can see from the sign behind me, what we do and why we do it is to connect entrepreneurs to each other, to resources, to events, both here locally, regionally, and across the country. And what we do with this show is just a little way of we try to make that magic happen here, because these COVID times, things locking back down, people are fatigued, people are getting burnt out. I feel even over the last week, people are getting burnt out even more. They're kind of feeling it here, and there's going to be a third wave and everything. I think people are just, it's so heavy. So part of what we like to do here, this is our 45th week we've done this, 45th episode. Hard to believe we've done this, but we're happy to keep going here, is not only to educate and enlighten, it's also to have some fun, provide a little bit of levity here. And I know today with our three diverse, awesome guests, we are going to deliver just that. So to get us started here, I am going to share my screen. If I can find it right. Oh, Reza, see, I've been doing so well over the last couple of weeks here, and now, I can't even find what I'm looking for here. Oh, there it is. Even though I think I've got the wrong. Oh, see, it's spoiler. I've already got Mark's smiley face up there. I'm going to have to do the whole thing. I'm going to go back through. See, close your eyes, everybody. Nobody saw anything. Didn't happen. There you go. So we'll start at the top. So today on our show, our three guests, we have Mark Bussey. I've known Mark, consider Mark a good friend, and the good work that he's doing. It's got, there's his title as brand director of culture and community for Michael Green Architecture, but he does so much more than that. He's going to talk about the work he's doing with Side Door, and we've actually had Dan Magan on as a guest as one of our previous band startup stories, celebrating arts and culture entrepreneurs. He's going to talk about not only Side Door, but also Creative Mornings, and if we have time, he's also going to squeeze in what they're doing with virtual field trips. We also have Angie Dosanjh on, who's a partner and the chief marketing officer with Marwick Marketing. Also as a background, we knew each other back in our BDC days. So we were going to have a conversation with her, and also with Adam Kyle Wilson, who's the co-founder of Polyform Studio. I just had a chance to meet him today. Maryam and Kyle, Adam are good friends, and he's doing awesome things with Polyform Studio. Can't wait to hear about that. But as we get started here, just to let you know, if you want to connect with us with Startup Vancouver, best way to do that is through social media. We're very active through Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and also our LinkedIn community page, and also with our YouTube channel. Look, we busted that 100 subscribers barrier. We did it. Kind of happy about that. So we post every single one of the recordings of our shows here, and also you can see on screen there with our canned startup stories. Last month, our theme was mental health awareness for entrepreneurs, and we had 6 amazing speakers, including Maryam Mobini, one of our co-hosts here today. Maryam actually shared her insights and her story with us there. So we want to make the show, as always, an interactive hour of conversation. So we're going to switch it up here. Being entrepreneurs, we're going to try a couple different things rather than having that 12, 13-minute conversation with one guest and one host and then opening up for a couple minutes. We're going to keep our conversation one-on-one a little bit briefer, and then we're going to open it up to all 6 of us here to have a discussion and conversation, and also with people attending both on Facebook and also on Zoom today. Put your questions in chat. Happy to even open up the mic or even the video for you if you want to do that, if you want to be part of the conversation in a deeper level of engagement. We have a charity partner, jack.org, that we're very proud to partner with. And jack.org is Canada's only charity that empowers youth, young people as advocates at a grassroots level, both in schools and in our communities here, to be those ambassadors to raise mental health awareness for youth. And we are very proud to say that we've raised over $1,000 on the show so far through donations. So thank you everyone that's done that in the past and continues to do so. So as I mentioned on the show today, we're going to start we're going to finish up with Maryam, having a great conversation with Adam. And in the middle, we're going to have Reza going to be talking to Angie. And to start off, after we finish up with acknowledgements here, Mark Busse and I are going to have a conversation about all the good things he is doing with building culture within community across multiple communities. And he's done great work. And I got to say, Mark, you know what? You're an inspiration for me, my friend. And a lot of the things that I've tried and get inspired by, you lead the way, and I just try to keep up. So you're doing great work, and can't wait to hear about that today. But the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to open up this to everybody, get everybody back on screen here. And this is a little segment we've started the last couple of weeks, and that's what we're calling Grata Tuesday, since we always host the show on Tuesday. What are we grateful for? It's easy to get down and, you know, during these tumultuous times, these hard times. But yeah, we just want to put it out there to everybody. What are you grateful for? Could be a small little thing, could be something bigger. So hey, Mark, I'm going to start with you. I know also you've offered to do, you know, also present a land acknowledgement, which we need to start doing on the show every week, which we're going to start with next week. But if you can start things off with
Sure.
that, and also maybe mention a little thing that you're grateful for.
How about I combine them? I will say that today I am very grateful, especially as I look at what's happening in the world, and certainly living in this place during this challenging time is fortunate. I feel really grateful to live in what we call Vancouver, but in the form of a land acknowledgement, I would say with humility, is the unceded, which, if that's a term you're unfamiliar with, it just means it was never surrendered. Another word that we use for that would be stolen. Land of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh peoples. They are all from a family of indigenous folks to the western part of North America called the Coast Salish people. And I don't offer that on behalf of this group in any form of judgment, but I do so in a form of respect, so that we can, as we consider what reconciliation means to any of us, just recognize the sovereignty of these First Nations, that they have struggled to maintain, these people who have lived in kinship and served as stewards of this beautiful land, water, and air for thousands of years before we were ever here. And just sort of acknowledge our complicity in what settler colonialism means in the modern context, so that we can think about what agency we have to participate in a better tomorrow. Does that mean using my time and my energy, or even my money, to support First Nations and Indigenous causes? And so that is why I would offer a land acknowledgement, and that's what I'm grateful for today. So back to you.
Thank you so much for that. Well, let's continue with our guests here as a way of introduction. So Angie, perhaps you can open up your mic here and maybe mention some small thing or some big thing that you're grateful for.
Well, I was going to say what Mark said. I think we're all, right now, all things considered, you know, we're very fortunate, and I'm grateful personally to be living in such an amazing place. But I think, you know, I'm also grateful for the relationships that I have. And I think through these trying times that we've had over the course of the last, you know, 12 months or so, it's really been those relationships, whether through video calls or, you know, just picking up the phone, that have really gotten us through. And I think, you know, one can't undervalue or underestimate the power of those. So that's what I'm grateful for.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Adam, like open it up to you. What some small thing perhaps you want to express some gratitude for?
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, I think in the vein of what's already been shared, I'm just really thankful that, you know, all of this happened at this particular moment in history, and we did have the technology to be able to FaceTime with, you know, my mother across the country, and to be able to resume work in some type of fashion from home. You know, if this all happened 20 years ago, it would have been a lot harder to do these kind of things. So I'm just thankful for all the you know, technology solutions we've had out there that have helped maybe even expedited, you know, vaccines and stuff like that. You know, it seems like a very lucky time to have all these tools at our disposal when we're facing a challenge like this. So very thankful to all the people who work so hard to bring us those things.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. Maryam, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. there's a lot I'm grateful for, but I just want to acknowledge this present moment. Being grateful to be here with all of you, and grateful to my community and the support that I've been feeling from my community. I just want to acknowledge, of course, Mark for being there, and we have Rick and the audience as well, who's been there through this hard time as well, and of course, like all of you here. So just really grateful to my community and the support that I've been feeling. Even though, yes, we we don't always get a chance to get together, but the presence is felt.
Wonderful. Nice. Thanks for that. Reza V, how you doing, my friend?
I've been, since the pandemic, unlike everybody else who got excited about working from home, I've been desperate to get out of home and have an office. And I had an imagination of what that would look like, because I love to do content and I wanted to have a miniature studio. Finally, this week, I have my own room. The acoustic panels are on wall. I have a proper setup. I'm super grateful for what I created. This is what I always imagined.
Love it. Love it. I love the fact the spectrum of gratitude, it could be the kind of a small personal thing. It could be just an outreach of something on a more universal level, and everything in between. I love this. And I guess for me, just to finish up here, I know Mark and I before, kind of offline at the beginning of the show, we're talking about, we both know each other's wives and being grateful for them, and obviously our partners and the gratitude we express to them. Which is so hard on couples. You just hear in relation how difficult this is. It's, with a lot of people, it's difficult for single people also, but also couples. It's really put a strain on a lot of people. And I just have to express such incredible gratitude for the patience and the love that my wife Mallory provides, and to do the things that I do and play in this sandbox of entrepreneurship. And the last 6-7 years have not been a straight line, and there's been some great moments and there's been some not so good ones. And to have her support, when I know that even pre-COVID, that a lot of partners would have said, okay, stop playing around and go make some money. You've had your chance to play. And she has been just unbelievably supportive. And I just want to express my gratitude towards my wonderful wife, Mallory, today. Here we go. Mm-hmm. All right. And this will be recorded so she can watch this later. So hopefully I score a point or two for that. There we go. So, hey, I'm going to start the conversation off with today with our first guest, Mark Bussey, who I introduced already. So we're going to focus today with Mark, the community building, especially in the design space where he's been working, and what that can design, of course, in arts and culture, what those could represent. So I'm going to let Mark tell us the thing he wants to focus on today, because he wears so many hats, juggles a lot of different balls. So Mark, of the things that I already introduced you with, the kind of the mouthful of the title, what is it you'd like to talk about today, as far as what's been challenging during COVID, what's getting you excited, what's making you grumpy, all the things in between. So what would you like to start with, my friend?
Let's avoid the grumpy, shall we? Okay. That will need more time. Well, I mean, keeping me up. Okay, first of all, let's do this. I have been kept up at night. I know that it's a phrase you use to just invite dialogue, but it's legit for me, right? So I mean, I've been lying awake wondering about my family, their health, my career, my identity, my community, politics. I mean, it's so much. It's been so much. And so what I do, just to give a little context, so I come from a fine art background, and then a business undergraduate sort of study, university time, then management in the creative space, and then owning my own agency for 20 years, and as a design professional, I started to very swiftly and intentionally, I guess, it just sort of captured me, move towards the human aspect. Right in the early days when, design thinking was sort of a way of describing what it is that we've been doing for a long time, I realized that it was just a bunch of words if you didn't have well-trained limbic energy practitioners who could structure curiosity and creativity in ways that would create valuable idea that you could move into motion and take action on. So I became I don't know what I am now. I'm a community builder, facilitator, a host, a culture guy, a strategist. I do a bunch of things. So I still work in the design space. My day job is a wonderfully challenging leadership role with Michael Green Architecture MGA, headquartered here in Vancouver. And I work, to help them determine, and I've only been there, less than 6 months, so it's still emerging as to what this will mean coming out of the pandemic, right? But what does community engagement look like if we double down? What benefits around the impact we can make in the world does a really clear purpose and a brand messaging platform informed by values and our vision look like, both for the culture internally, but also with our relationship with the communities that we serve. So that's a pretty fun and baffling job sometimes. But during this last year, which is amazing to think it's been a year. The community stuff has been at the core of what has bothered me and produced joy that has sustained me.
I love it.
Does that make sense? I can explain more, but
yeah, I definitely want you to do that. And I guess one thing for context with people here, Mark and I both come from, even though you didn't come traditionally from an architectural background, where I did, and that was the first part of my career for over 20 years, both with small boutique firms and also international firms. And I also always got frustrated with architectural firms and why I ultimately was disengaged and left. There was no sense of innovation as far as thinking in another way. Even that design thinking piece within a design firm wasn't really existing. And I always loved and championed what you did when you started a few years ago, when you were with HMA and created Tilt, is you completely, I don't like the word disrupted, but in a way you just completely turned it on its head and challenged that architectural stance or even the mindset of what the business is and what we show up and represent, and you completely turn that over and rethought that, and you continue with that with everything else. So I'd like you to maybe talk about that, of how you innovated in that sense.
First of all, let's be accurate. It's not me. It's without the appetite of people like Daryl Condon and his partners, and Michael Green and Natalie Telwiak and that team. And there are other architects around the world that are stepping into this space to say, wait a second, wait. Architecture is singularly positioned as a design practice to have arguably one of the most impactful relationships on humanity by virtue of what it is that they do. And yet, because of the traditions and the best practices and habits of the professional licensed architecture practice, risk aversion and kind of like just the formulaic way of pursuing sustainable, from a financial perspective, profitable, I guess we could say, development, it has not really, until people like Michael Green came along and said, you guys, stop it. There's a better way to build. Like we can sequester carbon and make it faster to assemble. And we can, yes, it's a little bit more money up front, but we can build structures that are healthier and happier and longer lasting and actually perform better in earthquakes and are actually fire resistant. And there's a whole kind of so the innovation in that realm was really about, as you used the word, it's a good one, disruption, a constructive approach to disruption. And what we were doing with Tilted HTMA was related. It's similar. It's that unless we have a visceral human connection with the communities that we serve, and we are involved as designers in the lives of those we are building for, how can we say we understand the human condition and build for it and wrap permanent structures around it if we're not participants? So that was the idea there, right? Like step away from the little box that is your design, portal into architecture. Get out and so that work continues. One of those projects that I doubled down on within the Tilt framework, and HTMA is still an excellent partner, and I'm very happy to have them along. But we do it now with MJ as well as Creative Mornings. You mentioned that in the intro. Creative Mornings, which we've done here in Vancouver for a decade now, is a free breakfast lecture series on creativity of all kinds for every human being. It is not for designers in particular. It's not for a particular group. It's anyone who is interested in identifying as, exploring, or learning about, or being inspired by creativity. And so we gather for breakfast, and we share stories, and we have a kind of a unique approach to the dialogic aspect of this knowledge exchange. And then COVID happened. Mm. Fucking COVID happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, Colin, I just want to bring the conversation to Mark. I'm really curious about, you were talking about the physical spaces. Now I want to bring the conversation back to building community on virtual spaces. Yep. And your involvement on those virtual spaces, like one of the virtual platforms that you mentioned that you're a big supporter of, Sidedoor. If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Sure.
It would be great. Yep. And I know you're also supporting Hoobie and, Pick My Brain and.
Yep. I'm investors, and just to be clear,
yeah.
I'm also a minor investor in all of those platforms. So just from an entrepreneurial perspective, one of the things that I think we all have choices of in our life is when a good idea comes along, use it, sure, promote it. Yeah. But if you can give them money and be a part of it, do that. You may not win every time, but some of these things, I think it was Adam who mentioned that we live in a very special time, because had this cluster of technology not existed, these entrepreneurs had not pushed us to this place, oh boy, would we be in trouble. Oh boy. So Sidedoor as one example, field trips as another example that I can talk to in parallel. Field trips was a side effect of something we used to do in real life at Creative Mornings, where we had the glorious problem, challenge of having way too much popularity in our region. And so if we only had 200 people in the room for our events, there were sometimes 300 people on a waiting list pissed off that they weren't able to attend. And the mailing list is, 10, 11,000 people in our subscriber list now, just in Metro Vancouver. And so we started doing these these side things where we would find a like-minded partner with something interesting in a story and an inspirational experience, and we would push people to that. It would be branded as a Creative Mornings event, but it was different. Well, now that became online, and it literally represents. I'm a bit of a Trekkie, Star Wars and Star Trek kind of person. Not so bad, but I've often thought, man, if only we had transporters, engage, and I could just be somewhere. And of course, now we live in the era of no travel. It's like, oh, great, I'm not traveling, my vacations are done. And field trips and Sidedoor act to me as like transporters. They're magic machines where suddenly, under the banner of Creative Mornings, some brilliant, generous soul in New York City is hosting 500 of us. Wait, I think did we have more? Hundreds of us on a walking tour of Brooklyn while we listen to music and have conversations and have a tour through New York. It was extraordinary. And like cooking classes from Mexico City, and like just all kinds of random, interesting experiences where you're connected with people in wonderful ways. And Sidedoor was a really interesting moment, because part of my own value set is around the kind of authentic, genuine human connections that can happen when people get together and celebrate, art and culture and creativity. And we Sidedoor, my wife and I invested, and we were excited to be part of the team that was named the platform of choice at South by Southwest for dozens of these live music shows. Well, March last year shows up, everything's shut down, everything's canceled, and we're thinking, great, so that's it. This is going to tank. But actually what happened is it turned into an incredible online community of giving, where artists now connect in beautiful, sometimes highly polished, highly produced expressions of performance that you would expect. But more often than not, beautiful, thoughtful, tear-jerking, gut-wrenchingly compelling content with musicians, not just Dan Mangan, there's hundreds of musicians, having relationships with people. I produce, my own sanity was preserved by being a producer, host, supporter of many of these shows. And sometimes I'll go through the list and ask people to put where they're from as they sign in and what have you. And dozens of cities around the world, all at the same time. Like someone's in Russia, someone's in South America, someone's in Africa. I'm like, what time is it there? Like 3 a.m. You stayed up till 3 a.m. to watch an acoustic singer-songwriter set? Like, that's incredible. So yeah, that has been, so as Adam said, the technology right now is allowing this time travel, parallel universe existence where I can be with my grandma and I can go and I can be in New York for an event. And now when we host Creative Mornings events, and they, we'll get hundreds of folks on an event, I'll ask where everybody's from. And often we have dozens, even over 100 people who are not even from Canada, let alone Metro Vancouver, right? They're just from all over the place, and they're participating and they're connecting, and it's beautiful. It's wonderful.
Nice, love that. Well, we'll make sure that we include in chat. I know Maryam and Reza, you've been busy doing that. So both for Side Door, Creative Mornings, we'll make sure that we have the links for those in chat there for everybody. Obviously for our YouTube channel here, we'll have those below in comments also. We could, like I said, we can keep this conversation going. We can turn this into a 5-hour show, but we want to be respectful and keep it within an hour. So, so if there's any more questions that anybody had for Mark, either in comments, Mark can either answer those in chat directly, or we could have, if we have time at the end of the show, obviously we can circle back and keep the conversation going. But let's keep things rolling here. I see that Reza's come back. I love the fact you were multitasking. You were actually, you were doing the boss thing there, and obviously we're doing some work behind the scenes while you were listening. So good multitasking, my friend. Good entrepreneurial hustle there. So hey, Reza, Angie, I want to turn it over to the two of you for to start off your conversation here.
You do that, Colin, when you have no other choice. You've got to learn. So I'm excited about this conversation. Angie, welcome to our show. I did a little bit of research last night. I was like, this is my thing, marketing. You have a experience in variety of different things. Instead of me spoiling it, I let you introduce yourself. How did you get into marketing, and how did you become, it's a new position you're having at, sorry, I want to make sure I pronounce it right, at Marwick. So can you tell us about that?
Sure, yeah. So how did I get into marketing? Sure, well, I mean, pretty neat kind of story. So for me, it all sort of started back in high school. In grade 12, I had an amazing marketing instructor who actually facilitated a trip for the class to Walt Disney World to actually spend 10 days studying their marketing strategies, branding, promotion. And, at that time, 17-year-old, I thought, well, great, this is a great way to get away from my parents for 10 days and, go down to Florida. Sounds like fun. But really, I was already quite creatively bent and had an interest in marketing and how these things tick and bop. And it had always kind of been my dream to work agency side. And I thought, yeah, I want to work at a really cool agency and drink fancy colored martinis, and it's going to be super fun. So what I did after graduation was I went straight into BCIT, because at the time they had the best marketing program that could get you, right into a career post school. And quickly learned that agencies were great, but it was long days, a lot of work. And my 19-year-old brain at the time wanted to make more money. So I decided to go corporate. And so that was basically where I spent the bulk of my career, working in various capacities, spent some time working within tech, within the tech industry. And then the majority of it within professional services. So accounting firms, some of the bigger ones nationally, MNP, PwC. And then as Colin mentioned, I also spent a few years heading up the marketing for BDC, Business Development Bank of Canada, for BC and North. And so that was really great. Was able to get involved in really kind of every aspect of marketing, from strategy, planning, project management, all the way down to the tactical. And then it wasn't until recently, about a year ago, that Christian Thompson and I kind of started having conversations about, my involvement in Marwick. Christian's the founder and CEO of Marwick, and he's done an amazing job, building it up to a great agency. And so when that door opened, I really kind of thought, wow, this could be, kind of what I envisioned my life to be 20 years ago. And, not only that, but I really liked where things were going with Marwick. Of course, life in marketing has changed drastically from when I first, started in the industry, just with the digital transformation and everything that's occurred over the last really decade. But COVID having accelerated the pace of all the change and things like that. So it just felt like a really good fit. And so kind of, where I wanted to be for the next half of my career.
So Angie, I want to get your opinion on, because you've been on both sides, I want to get your opinion on corporate or internal marketing versus the agency model. I know how the industry has transformed many times. Every agency is trying to try a different model and try to be lean.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of a lot of battle between the math and the creative, the art side of things, and the math and data driven side of things, how to be lean, all that stuff. So within the marketing community, I've noticed lots of transformation and changes and different agencies with different models. For an entrepreneur that is not in that space, overwhelming to know, who do I hire internally? Who do I outsource? Do I go freelance? Do I go agency? Where do I even start? Can you tell us, in your experience, what can an entrepreneur, how can they navigate, and when is the right time for each of those, agency versus internal, etc.?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think, like you say, it's something that probably keeps entrepreneurs and business owners up at night. They all know they need to do it. They need to invest in marketing, but, unfortunately, a number of them are still doing it off the side of their desk or not doing it at all. And I think, what needs to be considered is a couple of things. One is the goals of the company. So what is the business owner, entrepreneur trying to do? Do they want to grow the company? Do they want to scale it? Do they want to build to sell? Or are they just in a lifestyle business? Maybe they're happy with where they're at. So, first and foremost, they really need to kind of look internally to say, okay, what do I want to do with my business? And then from there, it's about recognizing the milestones or the various levels, if you may call it that, as to, what do you need in order to support your growth? And what's the most efficient way of doing that? And who do you need to have on your team? Oftentimes, what'll happen I've seen this in industry, is a company will go out and hire an in-house resource, a six-figure salary. When you think about all the overhead expenses, everything combined, it's a costly resource, not to mention onboarding them, training them, retaining them, all of that. They think, okay, well, we've got to bring someone in-house. And then next thing you know, they realize that, oh, wait a minute, we actually didn't need someone in-house. And, unfortunately, they're parting ways. Whereas that business owner, that company could have, looked around them to determine, okay, what is it specifically that I need? Do I need digital marketing support? Do I need more of a project manager in-house? Do I need a brand creative person? So, it's being able to identify really, one, how much do I want to grow and where do I want to grow? And then what do I need to do to get to that growth? And as we've seen, COVID's told us, really clearly that the future of the industry is really going towards e-commerce, online. And when you talk about, data-driven versus creative, within an agency setting, it's really about finding the balance, because both are important. Creative, messaging, brand, that's really the story behind the business. It's the culture, it's the voice, it's the personality, it's your value proposition. But the data is going to tell you what you need to do. So it really does need to be a marriage between the two. And it can be a challenge, and it is a balance sometimes, striking that, at Marwick, we do it for ourselves as a company, and, as entrepreneurs, we do it for ourselves, but day in, day out, we're doing it for other businesses. And, one of the important things, if I were to give an entrepreneur some advice, is when they're looking for agencies or outsource support, whether it's a freelancer or a consultant or a full service agency like Marwick, it's really about finding the fit based on what you need. And one of the things we do at Marwick is we really position ourselves as a trusted advisor to our clients. So we go beyond just transactional. Well, you need SEO, great, we'll do SEO. So we really invest in the company, and that would be my advice to any entrepreneur: is find somebody that aligns with what you value, and make sure you're getting that through the agency. And ultimately, that's how you're going to find the right fit.
I see, Angie, more and more startups that are successful. The founders or the founder is either wearing the CMO hat and they're hiring a CTO agency type of tech agency for development, or vice versa. They're the tech founder that they're the software engineer, and then they hire in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also seen sometimes they're more of an operation person, and then they need both. They need, let's say the e-commerce. I've seen a lot of people who are focused on the product and the operation, and they really need a marketing agency. For my journey, because I'm wearing the marketing hat all the time, it's a lot easier for me to navigate, because I can interview better. I can even wear the strategist hat and hire all the specialists for different types of content and get the ball rolling. But then for people who are not, marketing, they're not coming from a marketing background, it becomes very difficult to decide how to go about it. And I've seen oftentimes people skip the strategy. They just want to jump onto, I want content, I want advertising, I want PR. I'm like, you don't have the strategy or the target audience or none of that, and you want PR on I don't know, God knows what. What's your advice there? What can the entrepreneur do as their homework, so when they meet you or any agency or any marketing specialist, they get the most out of that, out of their job?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a very common thing that happens with a number of small business owners, is they do jump straight into, I just want results. I want immediate results. But it really is, if, in order to get that return on investment, you have to put in the investment on the back end to figure out, what do you want the return on? What is your vision? What is it really you're trying to achieve? Where's the potential for growth? Where's the opportunity? Looking at all those various points of your business to really be able to focus and hone in on what is going to grow your business, what's going to generate the leads, the conversions, ultimately the sales. And so that's really important when looking at an overall tactical plan, is, you can't jump the gun and kind of skip the strategy. And I think, strategy often it's a bit of an overused word. Like, everybody uses strategy, we throw it out there. And so maybe, it's just people have heard it so many times that they don't even know what to make of it anymore. But, it's ultimately, like when you're planning a product or you're baking a pie, let's say you're a baker, you own a bake shop. You're not just going to throw a bunch of ingredients and hope your pie tastes good. No, you're going to have a plan. You're going to say, well, you know what? I think cinnamon goes with apple. I think, top it with vanilla ice cream. Great. Okay, now let's go make it. So the same can be applied to a marketing plan. Let's start with the ingredients. What do we need to put in this thing to make it a success?
Absolutely. And follow-up question to that, how important is for the entrepreneur to know their target audience inside out? Or is it something they can just hire somebody else to do it for them?
I think it can be a combination, especially this day and age, because of what the data tells us. It's so amazing what we can do with technology and the type of data that you can get through Google Analytics or off of social media platforms, lookalike targeting, all that kind of stuff. There's such a plethora of information out there for business owners today that they don't need all the answers anymore. You know, look at the data. That's what's going to tell you who's buying your product, who's potentially likely to buy your product. And so it's about being able to, you know, look at the different personas of your target audience based on that data, and then crafting your messaging, you know, whether it's one type of buyer or multiple types of buyers, and letting the data help guide you.
Thank you, Angie, for letting me steer the conversation this direction. I feel like there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there that they have a hard time navigating through the marketing landscape, especially if they don't have much background in marketing. So knowing where to start, who to interview, do I need an agency, do I need freelance, is very one of the common things I personally see. So I want to open it up to everybody else if you want to jump in and ask your marketing questions while Angie is bringing so much value to this conversation.
Yeah, well, actually, I wanted to put it to both Mark and Adam there with both of your businesses and even what you do. Let's say Mark with both Side Door and Creative Mornings, and Adam with what you're doing with Polyform. What do you see as your target audience, and perhaps what you assumed it was, or what it was even pre-COVID, or even a couple of years ago, and how that maybe has refined itself over the last couple of years, especially the last 12 months? Maybe Adam, starting with you, maybe you can jump in with what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah. So for a bit of context, for those that don't know, we work mostly with startups in product design, kind of helping them get their idea to an MVP, or from that MVP to kind of like a category leading Series A, V1 type product. So, you know, when we started working with like a lot of large corporates. I think that's where like a lot of agencies go, trying to get those long-term contracts and stuff. But, you know, there was, Reza kind of touched on a bit of, you know, there's this kind of new type of founder, the CMO, where they're like outsourcing a lot of the technical stuff. And I think the more that we see that, the more we see opportunity for startups to work with third parties to kind of bring their idea to life. And it's not so much, you know, the technical founder working in a basement, you know, getting this coding all hours of the night. You know, it's a team that are less worried about outsourcing some of those foundational product and development skill sets. So and with COVID, I think there's just more collaboration happening than ever, and people are less concerned about location or time zone. You know, everybody's on Zoom anyways, even if they're in the same city. So it's really opened up, I think, the opportunity to work with a lot of cool startups overseas, and that, you know, less and less teams are trying to do everything in-house means there's more opportunities for us to work with them. So it's, in some ways, it's opened a lot of doors, this kind of shifting with COVID happening, and changed who we work with drastically, for sure.
Adam, you know, I observed that, you know, when COVID started, there were companies that actually, they didn't do so well during COVID. And we witnessed that some businesses that actually went out of business, that weren't able to pivot. But I'm witnessing that companies like yours are thriving. And can you tell us what is the reason for that? Is it because you're actually tackling, for example, you're working on the latest technologies that are out there, and people are wanting to jump on board and see, you know, just evolve their businesses? What is the reason for that? So please let us know.
Yeah, we've been super lucky. We've only been in business for about 2 years, so we're a little baby company still, and have been able to work with some really amazing brands and some really amazing startups. And I mean, for us, I think starting as a remote first company was a huge leg up when everything changed. I've personally been doing the digital nomad kind of remote life for like almost 5 years. So I had a lot of experience talking on Zoom and setting up my little office anywhere I go. So that was super helpful. And, you know, we already had infrastructure in place to have, you know, the global talent pool, as it were, which makes it really easy for us to take on a wide variety of projects and it not be adding a ton of risk. So I think that's where, you know, compared to maybe a more traditional agency, we have a huge leg up where, you know, they've got 60 of kind of the same skill set sitting in a very expensive office somewhere. We're able to have a very small office and, you know, dozens of people all around the world with totally different specialized skill sets. So we've been able to have a very diverse team and still stay very lean, and taking the remote first approach meant that there was, you know, we didn't really skip a beat when everybody had to go work at home.
I quickly want to add a comment before Colin starts the interview.
Oh, yeah.
I'm waiting for that too. Adam, I think timing seems to be impeccable. I feel like AR is about to explode post-pandemic. I can pandemic world, people have been experiencing all these virtual stuff, and they want to combine the good and the good from both worlds. They're like, I love this about Zoom calls and I love this about in person. Can we mash it together? So it seems like the landscape is going to be ripe for disruption right after pandemic.
Yeah, I talk to a lot of people about, you know, I don't think COVID is as much a disruptor as an accelerant of a lot of stuff that was already happening. I think, you know, AR, VR are a great example. People looking to expand what they can do at home in a really interesting, interactive way. You know, of course, with like the inability to go to big events, there, you know, you look at what Fortnite's doing and different platforms like this with these incredible virtual events with thousands and thousands of people. That probably wouldn't have happened without COVID. They wouldn't have pushed that part so quickly, or it wouldn't have been as adopted. So I think, yeah, it's really cool how it's accelerated all these things and accelerated these technologies. And I think, you know, on the case of talking about AR, especially, it's, you know, I would guess that in the next 5 years, it's going to come in and start to eclipse mobile really, really quickly. You know, adoption rates are going to just be like 100x what it was for mobile, and the prices and quality are going to be so much lower than when the first iPhones came out and stuff. So I think people, you know, I look at like my mom, and because of COVID, she's like doing so many Zoom calls, and she's using this app and this other app, and she's, you know, had to adopt all this new technology that she probably wouldn't have if COVID wasn't a thing. And the whole world is kind of adopting tech, I think, a lot quicker now because they're stuck at home. And also perhaps we've hit this time where most products are a lot easier to use than they used to be. People are more sophisticated software users than they used to be. So adoption rates are just much higher for everything. And then COVID's just accelerating it all.
Case in point, my 94-year-old dad is always waiting on our Zoom call every single week. So it's certainly happening. Yeah. Hey, so before Maryam jumps on a conversation to end the show today with Adam, I wanted to kind of keep the marketing theme going here with Angie and also Mark. Mark, I'm curious to hear what insights you can provide as far as Side Door, as far as marketing, especially now that you pivoted completely to virtual because you've needed to. Do you look to kind of user-generated content for people to kind of share that grassroots kind of marketing, or what type of strategy does Side Door have? And then with that, to Angie, to finish up, I'd like to hear your thoughts on ways for entrepreneurs to generate user-generated marketing content to help benefit them. So, Mark, I'd like to hear your insights with Side Door for marketing.
Sure. I'll use this opportunity to combine that with a question for Angie, actually, because there's an adage and a way of viewing marketing that's quite common, and I'm sure in the age of digital marketing, Angie probably subscribes to it in many ways. But that if it can't be measured, it won't produce impact. Or there's various ways to say that it's got to be data driven. Like there's a sort of romanticization around data. Like that we should be able to the KPIs and what are all the numbers and let's look at the chart and fuck that. I'm really interested, and I've seen it firsthand, and I'm interested in Angie's perspective in the emotional, purpose, values driven side of marketing in its role in this current context. Because I can tell you that like we accidentally produced this sort of pseudo strapline for Side Door, which now I'm forgetting. It's something like, this isn't a concert, it's community. And the idea that that was always the purpose. Before this pivot, we always were trying to figure out, and it was rooted, if I didn't explain it well before, in fact, I'm sure I didn't, the whole reason that Side Door was created by Dan and Laura and the team was that, I mean, talk to pretty much any professional, like paid musician who's toured, any of them, and ask them how much they actually like that. At first there's this exciting aspect of being on the road and showing up at venues, and then flip it and also ask yourself and anyone, and they've done the work, they do have the data. The live concert experience, which is magical, has become over the years actually quite a challenging thing, both in terms of how to make money and how to like make it a truly magical moment. There's the drunk guy in front of you and how much it costs for the babysitter, and you had to drive in from the suburbs, and there's just a whole bunch of and then the sound's not great. You're at a stadium, and why did I pay $100 for this ticket? And oh my God. And now folks are discovering that, like the whole point of a Side Door was, if you have a good backyard, or you have a lovely amenity room, or a rooftop deck in your building, you can host beautiful, incredibly rewarding live arts performance experiences. And now they're happening online. But not a lot of that was rated or was based in data. And I look at the startup community, I look at a lot of the products that Adam and others produce and get out there. And I sometimes wonder, because there's some that seem completely lacking in good, solid marketing data to drive it, and others that, despite the data, succeed anyway, right? Like Clubhouse, we were talking in chat about Clubhouse doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, but neither did Twitter. And yet it's running away with everybody, right? Like, what's going on? So anyway, Angie, I guess my question, oh, look at that, I'm question stacking. I did the thing we talked about earlier. I did the long run up to the question. Angie, what role in your career and this current universe you work in, does purpose and the emotional human storytelling aspect drive marketing compared to the actual plan and the strategy-driven data plan?
Yeah, for sure. Really good lead up, by the way. That was great. Very well illustrated. I think kind of coming back to the point I made earlier about, a marriage between the data, but also the voice of the brand is very important. That's where the emotional aspect comes in. And you're right. There are some brands, Twitter or, others out there that succeeded despite data, but in a kind of normal sort of ecosystem, it's really the voice and the emotion of the brand that carries it through to the point of transaction. There was a few years back where, I don't know if you guys remember, but WestJet over the Christmas holidays put out this campaign. Wasn't flight sales, wasn't any promotions, anything like that. What it was they just had this this offer, this contest where basically refer somebody who you think really, really should get a trip home for the holidays, and we'll fly them there. And they recorded these trips being offered and the emotion that was being felt by these people receiving these surprise trips, and the parents on the other end being surprised by their child who'd been away at university for years and they hadn't seen each other. Like, that's the emotion. All of a sudden, you love WestJet. Look at Starbucks, for example. It's not about the coffee. It's not about, drive through getting your morning caffeine kick. It's about the emotion of having the conversations when you're sitting there. Now, of course, COVID, that's all kind of changed and it's slowly coming back. But, it's really about, what do you feel when you're interacting with that brand? And what is the voice? What is the personality? So you cannot ignore the voice of your brand, the personality that you give it, because ultimately buyers, over the decades have become very, very sophisticated, and they have so many options out there. Purpose-driven marketing is a growing trend. We see that happening more and more now. Even if I may speak to kind of, my life at BDC, If you look at BDC's branding, it's very much about the voice of the entrepreneur. It's very much about, you know, what is the journey of the entrepreneur and what keeps them up at night. You know, it's about telling their story. It's not about talking about what BDC can offer. So it's really relating to ultimately their end client. So I hope that answers your question a little bit on, you know, how I see the two and where emotion fits into it.
There we go. Thank you for that. And Reza, Angie, thanks for the conversation. We definitely went over to the theme of marketing here, which is always a good thing for entrepreneurs. We get asked this all the time as far as how can they juggle that marketing ball when they have maybe no background in that or don't know where to start. So you've certainly provided, everybody here has provided some context for that and some nuggets of wisdom there. So to end the show today, Maryam and Adam, why don't the two of you jump on? We're going to go a couple minutes over here today. The great thing is like we're not a television show, so we don't have to end at the top of the hour. So we're going to go for about another 10 minutes here today and then close the show. So hey, I'm going to hand it over to Adam and Maryam to continue the conversation.
Hopefully that's okay for you, Adam, if we go over. Yeah, cool.
Thank you.
I feel that Polyform, there are a lot of layers and dimensions to Polyform. And really, I have three questions that I want to, uncover with you. One is around the partnerships that you made. And another is the type of projects that you take on, what you say no to, and what are the things you welcome. And as far as like technologies goes as well, I'm interested. And actually, no, there are four questions. And one is around the startup blueprint and the Skinner project. So we're going to focus on, let's say, the kind of projects that you say no to and the kind of projects that you welcome and you like to see more of.
Yeah, thanks for setting that up. This is kind of why Polyform exists. Again, we are a product studio. We're a design studio. We create physical and digital products, mostly in the consumer realm, mostly, native mobile, iOS and Android apps. We do some IoT stuff. We do some physical stuff like the Skinner project. I've been in the agency world for a while. I helped build one locally here that was, we worked with a lot of big corporates and, when you're building an agency, it's all about reducing risk, right? And with that previous company, we were some of the founders were very sales focused. So, what does that mean for an agency? It means you got to have a lot of headcount, and it means you need to have a lot of long-term, stable contracts, probably from big companies, building probably something pretty boring like some back-end dashboard for this or that. That's great. We sold that company. When we started Polyform, I was like, we want to try something different. We want to be impact focused. And that means we need to be risk excited instead of risk adverse. We need to find the best projects for us and the best people to work on them. And we have to be flexible because sometimes the best projects doesn't mean the best budgets. So for us, I have a background in sustainability as well. I double majored in that when I was in school for industrial design. And, we really look for projects that fulfill at least one of the three core pillars of sustainability: economic, environmental, and social. So we love working on wellness projects. We love working on projects for Gen Z. We love working on things that have a net social benefit. And we get to kind of hijack some of that benefit to the world. We feel like the more net social positive projects we can work on, we can go to bed a little happier thinking we made a positive impact on the world. So, it's a balance between finding these people and working with them and then keeping the lights on. We still do work with kind of the big corporates here and there, but when we do, we take kind of a Tom Shoes approach. So for every like Coca-Cola or Uniqlo or somebody like that we work with, we'll do a pro bono project. Like last year, we worked with a suicide prevention startup out of New Zealand. is really great called Live for Tomorrow. They have a couple new products coming out that are really great. We worked with a couple other things in that realm, you know, nonprofit tech startups, trying to disrupt some nonprofit space. So for us, it's all about saying yes to projects that are going to have a net social, environmental, or economic benefit. And sometimes yes to projects that aren't so beneficial, but will fund us, our ability to work with other nonprofits and stuff like that. So that's who we love to work with. And when it comes to the partnerships around stuff like that, it's all about how can we accelerate our ability to do those two things. So sometimes that means working with other agencies in a form of partnership. Like locally, we work with a really great company called Shape Immersive that does some really cool augmented reality things, especially in retail. You know, we love working with other agencies because they do a lot of business development for us with these big corporates. And then we just kind of do the fun design work, which is great. And
we
then
actually had Shape here. We had James here on the show last week.
Oh, yeah, exactly. James is great. James and I go way, way back. We're like cousins. Yeah, James is super, and they're doing great things over there.
Yeah.
And then so there's this kind of side where we work with other agencies, we work with the big corporates and stuff. And then I also am on the board at a couple accelerators down south that are focused on socially beneficial startups. One's called Headstream. It's Headstream's the accelerator. Second Muse is the VC firm part of it, and they're funded by Pivotal Ventures, which is a Melinda Gates thing. So you know, it's like good money coming from a good place. And that gives us access to tons of really great socially conscious startups because they're all going through the accelerator, and we get to work with them there. And then, so that's kind of how the partnerships work. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, around partnerships, what do you look for in a partner? How do you choose your partners? I see you've got like really great partners, like for example, you got Answer, Shape, and just to name a few. And so do they and you also have a place where people can apply to become a partner? Do a lot of people apply to become a partner? And what do you look for in a partner?
Yeah, a surprising amount of people hit us up about being partners. For us, it's all about finding another team or another group that does something very complementary to what we're up to, so that we can provide a richer service without having to hire a whole new department full of people. Shape Immersive's just such a great example of that, because they do so much cool 3D stuff, and they have they do a lot of development work and Unity development. We don't do any development, we just do design. So finding development partners is always amazing. And just looking for partners that are on the same mission. Other companies out there looking to work with startups helping the world be better. We want to work with them, and with our powers combined, do even more good. So that's there's no real criteria, just are they out there doing something awesome.
Amazing. And then on the side, you're also working on this other project, which is super amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about Skinner, and maybe if Colin, I don't know if you would want to share your screen, or you just want to tell us about it?
Oh, okay. Well, I'll start by telling you about it and why it exists, I guess. So part of Polyform is, wanting to work with other people to make great products, but also making great products ourselves. So every quarter we fund a project and staff a project that we kind of call Design as Social Commentary. Some of these projects don't go anywhere and are just kind of a fun internal practice. And some of them do. And one that has gotten a bunch of buzz, I guess, a lot of people interested, is a product called Skinner. We kind of spun it out as its own company. It's skinnerwear.com. And this is a jacket that you can wear that makes you invisible to any form of mass surveillance. So everything from non-UV protected CCTV cameras to 3D and 2D facial recognition to, you know, thermal optics from drone, from basically anything. You're just off the radar. And this was kind of in direct response to a lot of what we saw going on in Hong Kong and with the BLM protests. I was actually doing a bunch of work in Hong Kong and saw firsthand the demonstrations and the protests and how, you know, the government there was, you know, they're just skimming everybody's phones and taking all their information and using it, weaponizing it against them, often then, you know, arresting them later on. Instead of trying to arrest them at the time. And you see these kind of forces at play out there, and for the average citizen, it's like impossible to defend yourself against it. So we just wanted to make a tool that was super easy. Anybody can use it. It's non-technical. It's literally just a jacket. There's no switches to turn on or apps to plug it into or anything. And yeah, we're getting into production of the second version pretty soon, and hopefully make it available to, the first run will only be like 1,000, but after that we hope to make many more.
I love it. Super excited about this project, and I feel that there's some questions coming in the room. So hey, Mark, you have a question, you want to unmute yourself?
Sure. Adam is wearing that jacket.
Yeah.
Is it like a Faraday cage? Like, is it a signal disruptor? Does it have a wire mesh under the fabric?
So we have a special Faraday blend fabric that we use awesome. For all the internal pockets. So there's like a big pocket on the back you can put a laptop in. There's kind of tablet size pockets, and then on the arm there's a phone size pocket. So any of the dark pockets you put tech into, they just signal down. So this is how most people will steal the information from your phone, is that they'll use what's called a stingray that kind of pretends to be a cell phone tower, and then your phone connects to it thinking it's a cell phone tower, and then it just takes all your data. So having a phone not send any signals is kind of the way around that.
Speaking of things to keep you up at night.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but question for you, would your phone ring if it's in that pocket, or there is no signal?
No, there's no signal.
There's no signal. You go off.
It's a temporary solution. But so yeah, and I think for a lot of people too, the idea of being able to just go off the grid for 20 minutes, you know, just put your phone in this one particular pocket instead of the other one, is attractive in this world of kind of constant connection. It's the best solution.
Sorry to interrupt. I love it. It's the best solution. Instead of turning off your notification, you just put it in a pocket, nothing coming, and then you take it out of pocket. They all come at once.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't actually miss it. You just get them later.
It's like the Harry Potter invisibility cloak for your phone, in a way.
Exactly. And yourself.
Yeah, right.
And the last thing I want to ask you is around your, you know, what made you come up with the startup blueprint, and when did that come about?
Yeah. So the startup blueprint is it's an accelerator. We call it just a product design accelerator. And this came about after working, you know, for the last 10 years, I've been working with startups. I've probably worked with over 100 startups now. Founders are never designers. So for whatever reason, I think designers would be great founders, but they never are. It's always technical people or business people or marketing people. So when it comes to designing the product that they're taking to market, they often have no idea what to do. And it's kind of this black box where, like, you know, the creative person kind of goes away for a few weeks and comes back with this like solution. And I think it feels very inaccessible for a lot of people. So it was important for us to say, listen, you know, design is not this like, you know, this special thing just relegated to the hipsters of the world, and the flannel wearing beard guy on the team, which is usually me. It's a thought process, and it is a step-by-step, often framework that anybody can approach. You might not master it the first time, but you can walk through the steps and gain some understanding. And being able to at least speak the language of design and the language of product is a skill set that any founder is going to get just an incredible return on that investment of their education. So the Startup Blueprint is a 8-week accelerator designed for non-designer, even non-technical founders who want to learn how to make a really great product their customers love. And we go through everything from creating great personas to wireframing to high fidelity prototyping, user testing, stuff like that. And we don't get crazy into any one of the topics because any one could be a 4-year study. But we give everybody a really solid overview of it so they feel like they can approach it themselves. Or even if they're looking to make their first design hire as a startup, they know what to vet for. They know what to talk to them about. They know what this person's going to do in their organization when they hire them. Because a lot of founders don't even know that. They don't even know what the responsibilities of a UX, UI designer or a product designer are inside their org. So just giving them the tools to be able to understand that whole process. And yeah, we ran 3 cohorts last year of about anywhere between 10 and 20 startups from all over the world. We partnered with a couple other accelerators that teach the more business focus. That was the other thing, is that you look at like your Techstars and Founder Institute and even Y Combinator. Well, Y Combinator is better, but a lot of the traditional accelerators, it's solely focused on the business side and getting those investment dollars, which is a huge part of it. But making a really great product will help those other things happen faster. So we found that there was this kind of gap in the traditional curriculum that we could, fill.
Yeah.
I love this conversation too, that I know myself as an architect, Mark, your background in design also, I think, well, everybody here too, Angie, even the work you do in marketing here, just talking about design thinking, with what IDEO has done over the years and rapid prototyping and ideation and sprints. These are things that entrepreneurs need to know as far as be able to very quickly go through that feedback loop. And it sounds like you're teaching that. I know we're talking about it on the show a lot. So entrepreneurs out there, I hope that they understand that design will save the world. Design will save us all. And it's such an important, critical part to what we're doing. I think this conversation go on for another hour, but why don't we wrap it up here today with everybody? And on that note, Reza, my friend, why don't you take us away and end the show for us here today?
It was another Tuesday. Thank you for everyone for hanging out with us with What Keeps You Up at Night with Startup Vancouver. Thanks to Angie, Mark, and Adam. I would love to continue the question elsewhere. Maybe if everybody has Clubhouse, I can start a room overflow of this episode. We jump on Clubhouse and continue the conversation. But thank you for being with us. Next week, we have another show, 12 o'clock. Join us and your lunch break. Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.